below, tragedy was about to unfold in the airspace above the Potomac River. The serene waters of the Potomac, often a symbol of tranquility and beauty, would soon become the backdrop for a catastrophic event that would leave an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of many. At approximately 9 p.m. EST, a routine flight approaching Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport turned into a scene of unimaginable horror. The airport, usually a hub of activity and a gateway to the nation's capital, was about to witness a disaster of unprecedented scale. A U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter and a PSA Airlines Bombardier CRJ700 regional jet, operating as American Airlines Flight AA5725, collided in a horrifying instant. The collision, sudden and violent, was a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present risks of air travel. The impact, witnessed by horrified onlookers on the ground, sent shockwaves through the region and beyond. The sight of the two aircraft colliding, followed by a fiery explosion, was a scene of pure chaos and devastation. People who had been enjoying a quiet evening were suddenly thrust into a nightmare. The initial moments following the collision were met with disbelief and confusion. Onlookers struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. The sky, once a canvas of calm, was now filled with the remnants of a tragic accident. Emergency responders raced towards the crash site, their sirens a chilling soundtrack to the unfolding tragedy. The urgency in their movements reflected the gravity of the situation, as they prepared to face the grim task ahead. As darkness enveloped the scene, the grim reality began to set in. The once vibrant night was now overshadowed by the wreckage and the haunting silence that followed the initial chaos. The debris scattered across the area was a stark reminder of the lives lost in an instant. There would be no survivors. The realization hit hard, as rescue workers and onlookers alike grappled with the enormity of the loss. The scene was one of somber reflection, as the full impact of the tragedy became clear. All 67 souls aboard both aircraft, 64 passengers and crew on the CRJ700, and 3 soldiers on the Black Hawk, had perished in the collision. The loss was profound, touching the lives of countless families and communities. The crash sent ripples of grief and disbelief across the nation. News of the tragedy spread quickly, and the nation mourned the loss of so many lives in such a sudden and tragic manner. The sense of loss was palpable, as people from all walks of life came together to grieve. The loss of life, so sudden and so complete, left families shattered and communities reeling. Vigils were held, and people gathered to support one another in their shared grief. The sense of community was strong, as people sought solace in the company of others who were also mourning. The incident also raised urgent questions about aviation safety, particularly in the congested airspace around one of the country's busiest airports. The need for improved safety measures and protocols became a focal point of discussions as people sought to understand how such a tragedy could have occurred. As the nation grappled with the enormity of the tragedy, the arduous task of investigating the cause of the crash began. Experts from various fields came together to piece together the events leading up to the collision, hoping to find answers and prevent such a disaster from happening again. The investigation would be long and complex, but it was a necessary step towards healing and ensuring the safety of future flights. American Airlines Flight AA5725, operated by PSA Airlines, was a routine flight from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. The flight was scheduled to depart in the early afternoon, giving passengers ample time to settle in and prepare for the journey ahead. Wichita's Dwight D. Eisenhower National Airport was bustling with activity, as travelers moved through security checkpoints and gathered at their gates. The Bombardier CRJ700, a twin-engine regional jet known for its reliability, was carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members. This aircraft, a staple in regional air travel, had a solid reputation for safety and efficiency. It was a familiar sight at many airports across the country, often praised for its smooth flights and comfortable seating arrangements. Many on board were returning home after business trips or family visits, their thoughts on upcoming reunions and the comfort of familiar routines. Some were engrossed in their laptops, finishing up last-minute work, while others chatted with seatmates or flipped through in-flight magazines. The atmosphere was one of quiet anticipation, as everyone looked forward to reaching their destination. The flight had been uneventful for most of its journey, cruising at an altitude of 35,000 feet as it made its way eastward across the country. The pilots maintained regular communication with air traffic control, ensuring that everything was proceeding according to plan. The clear skies and calm weather conditions contributed to a smooth and pleasant flight experience. As the aircraft began its descent into the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, the passengers and crew likely had no reason to suspect that anything was amiss. The descent was gradual and steady, with the familiar sights of the nation's capital coming into view. Passengers started to gather their belongings, preparing for the final moments of their journey. Air traffic controllers guided the flight towards runway 33 at Ronald Reagan National Airport, a routine landing for flights arriving from the west. The controllers, experienced and vigilant, monitored the aircraft's approach, ensuring that it followed the designated flight path. The runway, illuminated by a series of lights, was ready to welcome the incoming flight. Unbeknownst to those aboard the CRJ700, another aircraft was operating in the vicinity, a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter on a training mission. The helicopter, a powerful and versatile machine, was conducting maneuvers as part of a routine exercise. Its presence in the area was coordinated with air traffic control, but the complexities of airspace management meant that constant vigilance was required. The details of the Black Hawk's flight path and its mission remain unclear, shrouded in the initial fog of the investigation. Investigators are piecing together the sequence of events, analyzing flight data and communication records to understand what transpired. The focus is on determining how two aircraft, each following their respective protocols, ended up on a collision course. What is clear is that the two aircraft were on a collision course, their paths converging in the darkening skies above the Potomac. The radar screens at air traffic control centers displayed the impending intersection, a scenario that demanded immediate action. The pilots, trained for such emergencies, had only moments to react as the situation unfolded with alarming speed. The U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter involved in the collision was a familiar sight in the skies above the nation's capital. Often used for training exercises and transport missions, the Black Hawk is a versatile and reliable aircraft, known for its maneuverability and resilience. However, the specific details of this particular Black Hawk's mission on the night of January 29 remain shrouded in mystery. The Black Hawk, carrying 3 U.S. Army personnel, had taken off from Fort Belvoir, a military installation located just south of Alexandria, Virginia. The purpose of its mission, its intended flight path, and the experience level of the crew are all details that are still being pieced together by investigators. The lack of a distress call from the Black Hawk prior to the collision only deepens the mystery surrounding its final moments. Adding to the complexity of the situation is the fact that military aircraft, particularly those involved in training exercises, often operate under different flight rules and communication protocols than their civilian counterparts. This difference in procedures, while necessary for national security and training purposes, can sometimes create challenges in coordinating air traffic, especially in congested airspace like that found around major airports. As the CRJ700, operating as American Airlines Flight AA5725, made its final approach towards runway 33 at Ronald Reagan National Airport, the pilots were meticulously following their landing checklist. The aircraft, a regional jet known for its reliability, was descending smoothly, and the crew was in constant communication with air traffic control, ensuring every parameter was within the safe limits. The weather was clear and visibility was good, making it an ideal day for flying. However, unbeknownst to the crew, a series of events was unfolding that would soon place them on a collision course with another aircraft. It unknowingly entered a critical phase of flight. This phase, often referred to as the sterile cockpit period, is when the flight crew must focus solely on the tasks at hand, minimizing distractions to ensure a safe landing. During this time, the pilots are intensely monitoring their instruments, communicating with air traffic control, and making real-time adjustments to the aircraft's trajectory. The descent and landing are among the most demanding aspects of any flight, requiring precision, focus, and clear communication between the pilots and air traffic control. The pilots must be acutely aware of their surroundings, including other aircraft in the vicinity, weather conditions, and any potential obstacles. This high level of situational awareness is crucial for a safe landing. Meanwhile, the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter, its mission and flight path still unclear, was also operating in the same airspace. The Black Hawk, a versatile and powerful military helicopter, was on a routine training mission. However, the exact details of its flight plan and its communication with air traffic control remain shrouded in mystery. The presence of a military aircraft in civilian airspace adds a layer of complexity to the situation, raising questions about coordination and communication between different aviation authorities. The exact point of impact within this shared airspace is a crucial piece of the puzzle that investigators are working tirelessly to determine. The collision site, marked by debris and wreckage, is being meticulously examined by a team of experts. They are looking for any clues that could shed light on the sequence of events that led to the tragic accident. Every piece of evidence, no matter how small, is being carefully analyzed to reconstruct the moments leading up to the collision. Preliminary data suggests that the collision occurred at an altitude of approximately 2,500 feet, a mere few miles from the airport. This altitude is a critical juncture in the descent phase, where aircraft are preparing for their final approach. The proximity to the airport means that both aircraft were likely in communication with air traffic control, making the collision even more perplexing. How could two aircraft, both under the guidance of experienced controllers, end up on a collision course? What transpired in the seconds leading up to the collision remains a haunting unknown. Radar data shows the flight paths of both aircraft converging, but the reasons behind this convergence are still unclear. Was there a miscommunication between the pilots and air traffic control? Did one of the aircraft deviate from its assigned path? These are the questions that investigators are trying to answer as they piece together the radar data and communication logs. Did the pilots of either aircraft see each other? In the critical moments before the collision, were there any visual cues that could have alerted the pilots to the impending danger? The cockpit voice recordings, if recovered, could provide valuable insights into the pilot's awareness and reactions. These recordings capture every sound in the cockpit, from the pilot's conversations to the alarms and alerts that may have sounded in the final moments. Were there any last-minute attempts to avoid the collision? The flight data recorders, commonly known as black boxes, hold the key to understanding the actions taken by the pilots in those final seconds. These devices record a wealth of information, including the aircraft's speed, altitude, and control inputs. By analyzing this data, investigators can determine if the pilots attempted any evasive maneuvers, and if those maneuvers were executed correctly. These are just some of the agonizing questions that investigators are hoping to answer by analyzing radar data, air traffic control recordings, and the crucial black box data recovered from both aircraft. The investigation is a painstaking process, requiring the collaboration of multiple agencies and experts. Each piece of data is scrutinized to build a comprehensive picture of the events leading up to the collision. The answers to these questions will be crucial in understanding the chain of events that led to this devastating tragedy. By uncovering the root causes, investigators hope to prevent similar accidents in the future, ensuring the safety of all who take to the skies. The lessons learned from this investigation will be shared with the aviation community worldwide, contributing to the ongoing efforts to improve air travel safety.